Hello, so here's a little gizmo which I've been working on for the Vectrex. I still haven't got a name for it. Suggestions are welcome. So what does this do? So Chris and myself recently released Nox and Death Chase, and I added Atari driving controller support into Nox at the last minute, after everybody sort of requested that. The drawback of the Atari driving controller is, although it's quite cool that you can just plug it straight into a Vectrex, and if I turn the spinner here, you can see it moves the first two buttons 1 and 2 on the first controller are toggled through whilst you spin the spinner. And it means that if you want to have spinner control and buttons, you've got to plug your other controller into the second port, and that gives you spinner and buttons. But it's a problem because it means you can only have one driving controller and you've got this rather cumbersome setup. So I thought we could do a bit better than that. And the other problem is, obviously, the spinner controller, the button doesn't do anything, which I thought was a shame. We really want to have the spinner controller working with the button. So I built this little gizmo. This end is plugged into the Vectrex, this is plugged into the Atari driving controller. I've got a wee switch on here to turn on the support for the button. And now, when you press that button, watch the joystick. So basically, we now have a way of detecting when the button is pressed, so we can have spinner control and the spinner button working away all at once through one port. Not only that, but we can put a second spinner into the device. Pop that in here. This is going to be quite a boring video, but there you go. So we now have a second spinner, homemade spinner, and if you watch, what happens now is the second spinner will toggle buttons 3 and 4, and the button on the second spinner will move the joystick horizontally. So first controller on a single port uses buttons 1 and 2. Quite difficult to do this with one hand. And the button moves the vertical stick. Second controller, got to leave these in the off position. Second controller detected on 3 and 4 and uses, let's see if I can get that both in the video. See, it turns, this thing's flash, and it uses the horizontal stick when you press the button. So, and at the moment we still have the Vectrex controller plugged into the second port, and that works in exactly the normal way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So right now we have a Vectrex controller fully supported and 2 Atari driving controllers fully supported on Vectrex. And of course, you can unplug this guy and plug another one of these guys in, and then you would be able to plug in 4 Atari driving controllers to your Vectrex and use them with the buttons as well. And there is one other possible configuration as well, which is you can remove one of the spinners. So we have the device I've built, Atari spinner. I'll unplug my Vectrex controller, and I can plug the Vectrex controller into the second port, going to put the phone down in a second. There we go, just had a slightly dodgy connector there. So as you see, we have, yes, we have this is plugged into the first port on the Vectrex. We have controller A is a spinner, and controller B is the Vectrex controller. So now we have, if I can get the screen up as well, we have spinner support on buttons numbers 1 and 2. And then if I press number 1 and 2 on the Vectrex controller, can I get these both in screen? Just about. You'll see they've now been rerouted to buttons 3 and 4. So basically we can have a spinner, that button, and those two buttons all supported on a single port. And I think this is probably how Victrosis is going to be set up. So we reckon that this configuration will be a Victrosis compatible. We're guessing. And of course, same as before, we can plug two of these in to the Vectrex, so you can have a spinner and 1, 2, 3 buttons on one port, and a second spinner and another 1, 2, 3 buttons. So that's the machine, which we will be developing further if people are interested. So, as I mentioned at the top of this, we came up with this idea in the week between us selling the first batch of Noxes and releasing them while we waited for our foam. And after we went to a show and listened to some feedback, I was persuaded to add spinner support for Nox, and in doing that I got sort of obsessed with it, and that's when I came up with this thing. So we did add support for this into Nox and Death Chase as a wee undocumented feature. It's a little bit last minute and a little bit kind of ropey, but it actually works pretty well. So the only difficult bit about it is selecting it. So we're on Nox, we've got the joystick plugged in with one of these terrible leads. If anyone has got a good source for extension leads that actually work, we'd really be interested in that, by the way. So if I start Nox, and I select mode 3 for Victrosis, which is a wee bit tricky. That's just this lead. It's nasty. And then, so I've selected 2 Victrosis modes. I'm going to put it in rookie mode. I would put it in rookie mode if the button would read. So at the moment we've got the controller plugged in. So I'm going to unplug the controller, and I'm going to plug the Atari controller back in with the device here. So that's plugged in. That's the Vectrex, that's the Atari driving controller. And now when I hit the button, off we go. It's kind of difficult to play with one hand, but I'm actually trying to play this game by looking at my recording on the phone and with one hand, which is not ideal, but here we go. But as you can see, my car now responds to the button control. And believe me, this is by far and away the most fun way to play this game. And it's pretty cool on Death Chase and Skull Soccer as well. So that's the wee device we built. I'm just gauging interest in it at the moment and see whether anybody wants one. Also interested if anybody wants to develop games that support it. That is all. Thank you. Goodbye.